Fred's VTJ. Panama Canal, November 13, 2018. Through the Panama Canal from the Pacific to the Atlantic. As we approach Panama City, Panama, it is 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. Timing required so as to arrive at low tide. We slowly approach El Puente de las Americas, or the Bridge of the Americas, which signals the beginning of our passage through the Panama Canal. At standard draft and tide, the ship would collide with the bridge so that the timing required to clear the bridge is critical. Low tide and increased draft. As you can see from these videos, we clear the bridge with only a few feet to spare. The Norwegian Bliss is a very large and tall ship. Joining me at this early hour, now about 5 a.m., are these other members of our group. James, Don, Amy, Sarah, Peter, Ling, Annie, Christine, this is his name but they call him Chi, and Jennifer. Traversing the locks is a time-consuming process, and it will take pretty much all day to get from the Pacific side to the Atlantic side. Once under the bridge, the ship is given a time slot to enter the locks and a location to sit and wait for the time to move. We sit for a couple of hours before moving. When it was time for the ship to start towards the locks, I headed to the bow of the ship to photograph the traversing of the locks process. The ship in front of us has proceeded to the second lock, and the door to the first lock is opening so as to allow us access. You will see an arrow on the port side at the end of the pier extension. The original purpose of this arrow was to indicate to the ship which side to line up on because they had side-by-side locks before. This arrow is here as more of a traditional item. There is only one set of locks, therefore only one side to line up on. One might argue that it is a visual indicator in case all else fails and visibility is hampered. The ship stops short of entering the locks so that the guide tugboats can hook up to pull and guide the ship through the locks. There's a tugboat in front and also one attached at the rear. The tugs are hooked up and they begin the process of pulling the ship through the locks. The waterway off to the side is the approach channel to the Miraflores and Pedro Miguel locks. The old locks were open for business in 1914, and the new locks were opened in 2016. The new locks are for the larger ships. It is estimated that around 3 times as much cargo can be carried through the new locks as compared to the old locks. Some of the video I will show at normal speed. This is so you can tell exactly how slow the process is. However, I will speed up a fair amount of it so that the process can be observed without taking a huge amount of time. As can be observed here, where the video is at 4 times normal speed. There are 2 doors at the end of each lock. The reason for that is for safety redundancy. If one fails or is hit by a ship for some reason, there is a second one to hold the water back so that there won't be catastrophic flooding. Once the ship is fully in the lock, the rear door lock closes. The water then rises in our lock and lowers in the next lock until they are at the same level. The old locks also have swinging doors, and the new locks have sliding doors.
Yes, sir. It's already now the water just sliding away. Tucking yourself in there.
As we are now transitioning to lock number 2, I head to the rear of the ship, or the stern. On the way, I get a video with a perspective of how close to the side of the ship is the lock wall and how slowly we are proceeding. We are now fully in lock number 2, and the lock doors are closing behind us. You can see the rear tugboat maneuvering so as to keep the ship centered. The red arrows will show the rise in water level. It is late in the morning, and the bridge of the Americas is still visible. This is the Kokali control tower. We are now headed into the 3rd and final lock. This is a view looking aft of the ship, where we are leaving. Sure, come on up here. Off to the side of the locks are some large cement-contained pools of water. What are they and what is their function? They are technically called water-saving basins. There is so much rainfall in Panama that there has rarely been a concern about the need for water. The problem is that there are no pumps in these locks. It is all gravity fed. Once released, it's gone. So the filling and releasing of water has been out of the lakeside, which is the supply of water for the locks, into the ocean side. At the end of the dry season, due to the possibility of a shortage of water, the addition of new locks was cause for concern. So they engineered a partial recovery system where 60% of the water from one lock is cycled back into the next lock as the ship progresses, using these water-saving basins. That's it. We have risen approximately 85 feet or 26 meters to the level of the lake, Lake Gotham, and will soon be under our own power as the tugboats release the lines. As we exit the Cocoli locks and enter the approach channel to the Culebra Cut, off to the starboard or right side of the ship we see the old dual-lane Miraflores locks. These locks are the first set which, from the Pacific side, bring the smaller ships up to the Miraflores Lake, which is halfway up. Then we pass the Pedro Miguel locks, which bring the smaller ships up to the level of the Culebra Cut, Gotham Lake level, which is where we already are. We are now reaching the end of the approach channel and entering the Culebra Cut. This is where the most significant excavation of land was required in order to build the Panama Canal. It is an 8.75 mile cut through the mountains of the Continental Divide from Pedro Miguel, which we just passed, to Gamboa on the Chagres River. Very shortly after entering the cut, we pass under the Puente Centenario, or the Centennial Bridge, built approximately 100 years after the canal. It's the second bridge over the waterway built in order to supplement El Puente de las Americas, because that bridge has become a bottleneck of traffic where 4 times the original estimate of traffic today tries to cross the bridge. Immediately after Centennial Bridge is Gold Hill. Over the years, especially during canal construction, the source of much consternation and problems due to mudslides. It is called Gold Hill because when the French started construction back in the late 1800s, they thought that this place contained gold, but it did not. However, the name stuck. As we near the end of the cut, just before the Chagres River, on the bank of the cut and the edge of the jungle is the Renacer prison, where after spending several decades in foreign prisons, the infamous Manuel Noriega, the former dictator of Panama, spent the last 6 years of his life, dying in 2017 at the age of 83. We are now exiting the cut at the Chagres River, which gives us access to Gotham Lake. The Chagres was dammed up on 2 sides to turn the Gotham Lake into a body of water able to handle large ocean-going vessels for the completion of the Panama Canal. Just after entering the waterway, there at the junction of the Culebra Cut and the Chagres River is the small town of Gamboa. And as we pass by, I get some video of the famous crane called the Titan. Quick history. One of the largest cranes in the world and used to transport canal lock doors for their periodic required cleaning. Adolf Hitler had 3 of these built during World War II. The other 2 have been lost. This one was American World War II booty and spent 50 years in the docks of Long Beach, California. In 1996 it was sold to Panama and has been here ever since. Other nicknames besides Titan are German Crane or Herman the German. Back before they started, there was just a river in the valley. We cruised for the next hour or so through the lake. They plugged up both ends with dams and filled the valley with rainwater, to where now we have a huge lake where the valley once was, and the numerous small islands we pass are just the tops of hills that did not get submerged. We are now approaching the second set of locks. For us, it will be the Agua Clara locks. This ship here is headed for the old Gatun locks for smaller vessels. We are now headed into the final set of locks, Agua Clara, with the tugboats assisting our ship in being lined up for entry. We enter the first lock, and again, the video speed is enhanced. And once fully inside, the lock doors close behind us. There are 3 locks here, just like in the first ones we went through at Kokali, and it takes several hours to transit them. Since the process is the same, I am proceeding pretty much directly to the opening of the final lock and our exiting the canal. You can see the plume of smoke coming from the tugboat as it starts up to guide us out of our final lock. This is the video I got from the ship's forward TV camera. We are now in the process of fully exiting the canal locks. We are nearing the end of our channel from the Agua Clara locks, with the approach channel to the Gatun locks off to the port side, which is where the ship we see is headed. Additionally, in front of us is the Atlantic Bridge, the third bridge over this waterway, and scheduled currently to be completed in 2019. Again, the approach channel to the Gatun locks for smaller ships. As El Puente de las Americas, the bridge back at Panama City, signaled the beginning of my transit through the Panama Canal, so too the Atlantic Bridge in Colon signals the end of my transit through the Panama Canal. As we pass under the Atlantic Bridge and leave it and the Panama Canal behind, I reflect on what an inspirational experience this was. And I want to express my sincerest appreciation to Ling and Don Young for inviting me to join them on this fabulous cruise.